and tell, show. My profession cross 46 years ago was this. And it had the heart with the crown of thorns, the blood from the pierced side, the flames, talking about the love of the Lord for us, as well as purifying. And Rome asked us to stop using this. Why? Because they didn't want people worshiping a disembodied heart by wearing this. A lot of, especially non-Catholics, would say, you Catholics worship an organ of the body, which we don't. The Sacred Heart speaks about the reality of Jesus Christ and his love and mercy toward us, where this represents a physical organ, although I prefer it because it talks about the price of love. The crown of thorns, the pierced side, heart on fire with love and mercy. So this province then a number of years ago came up with a symbolic Sacred Heart. The wounds, the heart, this little line represents the pierced heart, so it's more symbolic, but still talks about the heart of Christ and the price he paid for our salvation and for his love and mercy for us. And the most recent one, which Father Miguel has on, was, I think, designed by one of the members in Germany, and is the latest rendition. My prejudice, I will tell you about. Every time I'm driving behind a car, it says, I heart my German Shepherd. I love New York. So when I see this, I say, this doesn't say everything is love, but it doesn't give any indication of the price of love, the cross itself, but it's kind of, anyway, it doesn't speak to me, so I usually wear one of the other ones. Even the one banned by Rome speaks much more to me of the price of love. A couple things. What is Dehonian spirituality? I would say most people have never heard. What does that mean? My preference would be the spirituality of the Sacred Heart with a certain interpretation given by Father Leo Dehon. Every community, say the Franciscans, there are many branches of Franciscan order. Each branch has their own particular take on the life and spirituality of St. Francis. There are many congregations dedicated to the Sacred Heart. Each one of them has a certain perspective of the Sacred Heart spirituality. Now, Father Dehon, which I'm going to give just a few words on, had his own particular take on what Sacred Heart calls us to. So my preference would be that we would call it Sacred Heart spirituality, according to the founder, Father Leo Dehon, because when you say Dehon spirituality, 99.9% of Catholics wouldn't know what you were talking about. So, to put it in the context, Father Dehon founded the Priests of the Sacred Heart in 1878. It coincided with the papacy of Leo XIII. In visiting Leo XIII personally, the Pope gave this injunction to Father Dehon: preach my encyclicals. Rerum Novarum was an encyclical based on the rights of workers. And so Father Dehon saw just within France how the workers, they had no rights, long hours, young kids, no OSHA or anything to do. And so he preached the encyclicals in the light of social justice. So that's the particular take that Father Dehon. Now, the Sacred Heart was made popular through St. Margaret Mary in the 17th century. As I have read and understand St. Margaret Mary, much of what she promoted was a devotion, rather than, she wasn't saying get out there and work for justice and peace. That's not wrong, it's just a different take on it. And so the words that the priests of the Sacred Heart have tried to incorporate and embody in our congregation are oblation, which is a strange word, but it means self-giving. We unite ourselves with Christ for the ongoing redemption of the world in which we live. Now, Christ is the Redeemer, I'm not. But I work with him, with Jesus, who is now with the Father fully glorified and is no longer suffering. I work with him, we do, priests of the Sacred Heart, for the ongoing redemption, not of people's souls, but of their, not only of their souls, but of their life situations. So oblation means self-giving with Christ. In the afternoon, during our Eucharistic adoration period, we pray prayers of reparation. Now, St. Margaret Mary had a prayer which I learned 46 years ago, and because we said it every day, I still know it. Behold this heart that has loved men so much, but receives only indifference, neglect, and ingratitude from most people, even from those of us who have received his special love. So her take on this was reparation to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Even as a novice, I would say to myself, Jesus is glorified. He's not suffering anymore. He did, but this reparation to the Sacred Heart in a devotional form is not how we understand it. The body of Christ, us, the people of the world and of the church, need the message of God's unconditional love and mercy. And who needs it the most? Those people who are on the fringes of society, whose rights have been violated over and over again. And so we see both the Eucharist, which we celebrate in the morning, and Eucharistic adoration as being both fed by the Lord, and then in the afternoon we pray this prayer of reparation, repairing, calling us to repair what is broken within the world. And so we have a 4-week cycle of prayers of, like, morning offering prayers, self-giving, oblation, and we have a 4-week cycle of reparation prayers. But it's not reparation to poor Jesus. It's to poor Jesus who continues to suffer in his body, us, and the world in which we live. The spirit of Father Dehon, he never founded the community with a certain ministry in mind. He said, whatever you do and wherever you go, bring the spirit of God's unconditional love and mercy to those people. And he suggested that the people that this be directed to would be, most of all and primarily, the people on the outs, the fringes of society. So when the priests of the Sacred Heart came to the United States in 1923, they explained some of the spirituality to the American bishops and said, we'd really like to work and witness to God's love through our lives and ministry among those people who are most on the fringes and forgotten. And the bishop says, oh really? Here in the States? Go to South Dakota. That's where they started in 1923. Now, I was there in 1985. It was the Wild West among the Native Americans. And these German-speaking immigrants went to South Dakota with little or nothing and just lived among and worked among the Native Americans. In 1929, we came knowing that we're not going to get too many vocations out on reservations in the middle of nowhere. We bought the Sisters of Perpetual Adoration who were on 68th Street. This was their old abbey, their cloistered, and it was called a monastery because they were cloistered nuns. Well, they were building a new place. The price was right for the shabby abbey, and the priests of the Sacred Heart, who had religious brothers who did a lot of manual work, brought it up enough for them to live there. This was all farmland in 1929. The farmers knew the place as the Sisters' Monastery. Well, now it's the Sacred Heart Priests Monastery. We're not monks. We're an apostolic religious community, but the name Sacred Heart Monastery stuck. And to be quite honest, because of our fundraising, we would never change the name to other than, because everybody in this country, if you're Sacred Heart Monastery, and when they come here, they say, where are the monks? And I say, oh, keep looking, they're not looking at one. So, Eucharistic-centered, oblation, self-giving, reparation in terms of trying to repair in society what is torn apart or broken. Not founded for a special ministry, but with a spirit of love, self-giving, and repairing a wounded world. In the United States, we are in South Dakota, northern Mississippi, and for many years we're in the Rio Grande Valley, right across the border from Mexico. Now we have one parish in Houston, which is for the Spanish-speaking from anywhere in the Houston area. It's a non-territorial parish. So anyone who is, and everybody who is Spanish-speaking, when they have Our Lady of Guadalupe feast, tens of thousands show up. They have masses going, and people are selling food, and it's quite an event. And lastly, the founder was interested not only on the social ministries to reflect the heart of Christ, but the education of clergy. And that's how we, so South Dakota, Mississippi, Texas, and Hales Corners. Then any of you going for the mission education, you will see what has been done in Mississippi. It is outstanding, outstanding. Any questions?
Thank you. I don't know if any of you have class, but please stay and ask questions, have some coffee.
You want to look at our prayer book?